Before we begin, I need you to understand something incredible. What you're about to read will change how you think about beauty, worth, and the kind of love that sees past appearances straight into the soul. A librarian who spent her whole life in her sister's shadow. A millionaire who could have anyone. And one ridiculous deception that would reveal the most unexpected truth of all, that sometimes being yourself is the greatest gift you can give. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Now, because this story has an ending so beautiful, so moving, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. Trust me on this. Now let's begin. The gray November morning in Chicago wrapped the city in fog as Veronica Dorset hurried through the cobblestone streets of the old downtown, rushing to work. The 31-year-old librarian from her small apartment in Lincoln Park didn't stand out in the crowd. Her simple chestnut hair was tied in a careless bun, and thick-framed glasses hid her large hazel eyes. Dressed in a loose sweater and plain skirt, Veronica always tried to be as invisible as possible. "Veronica, wait!" She heard her sister Alexandra's voice behind her. Unlike Veronica, Alexandra was the embodiment of everything Veronica wasn't. Confident, dazzlingly beautiful, and always surrounded by attention. "Alex, what are you doing here at this hour?" Veronica asked, surprised, glancing at her watch. It was approaching 8 a.m., and her sister rarely got up before noon. Alexandra, perfectly made up despite the early hour, grabbed her arm. "I have a proposition for you. Remember William Kensington?" Veronica frowned. Of course she remembered that name. William Kensington, 38-year-old millionaire, owner of one of the largest tech companies in the country, was a frequent guest in the tabloids. Handsome, wealthy, and desired by every single woman in Chicago. "That Kensington? What about him?" she asked suspiciously. Alexandra smiled mysteriously. "I have a business meeting scheduled with him tonight. His foundation wants to invest in one of our agency's charity projects. And what does that have to do with me?" Veronica shifted from foot to foot, feeling she'd be late to the library. "I broke my leg in 2 places," Alexandra said with a dramatic sigh, pointing to an elegant orthopedic boot that Veronica hadn't noticed before. "The doctor forbade me from leaving the house for at least a week, but this meeting is too important to cancel." Veronica already knew where this was going. "No, Alex, I'm not going to any meeting with Kensington pretending to be you. Please, it's just a formal meeting at a restaurant. You just have to sign preliminary documents and discuss the basic assumptions. I'll prepare everything. You can do this." "But he's seen your photos. He knows what you look like. He'll notice the difference," Veronica protested, adjusting her glasses. Alexandra waved dismissively. "Men like him don't pay attention to details. Besides, we're sisters. We have similar features." "Similar features?" Veronica snorted with laughter. "Alex, everyone knows I'm the uglier sister. I always have been." Alexandra sighed deeply, then looked at her pleadingly. "I know it sounds crazy, but I really need your help. This contract could save our agency." Marcus agreed it's a good idea. Marcus, Alexandra's fiancé and co-owner of their small advertising agency, always had stupid ideas that her sister for some reason considered brilliant. "This is absurd." Veronica shook her head, but seeing the desperation in her sister's eyes, she felt herself weakening. She'd always had too soft a heart. "Fine, but just this one meeting." Alexandra squealed with joy, hugging her sister. "You're the best! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Come to my place after work. I'll prepare everything for you. Dress, makeup, hair, all the documents. You'll look stunning." As Alexandra walked away, Veronica stood on the sidewalk for a moment, longer, wondering what she'd just gotten herself into. Something told her this meeting with William Kensington wouldn't be as simple as her sister promised, and she was absolutely right. She had no idea how much this meeting would change her life. After work, when she crossed the threshold of her sister's luxury apartment in downtown Chicago, she felt like a prisoner walking to her execution. Marcus, a tall blonde with blue eyes, greeted her with a wide smile that seemed a bit too forced. "Veronica," he called enthusiastically. "Our hero. Alexandra's already waiting for you in the bedroom. I hope you know how much this means to us." Veronica nodded, not trusting her voice. When she entered her sister's bedroom, Alexandra was already waiting with an entire arsenal of cosmetics and a black dress laid out on the bed. "This is going to be a wonderful evening," Alexandra said with a gleam in her eye that Veronica knew all too well. That gleam never boded well. The Voyage restaurant was one of the most exclusive places in Chicago. Hidden in a historic building on Michigan Avenue, it attracted the business and cultural elite of the city. Veronica stood before the entrance, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. The dress Alexandra had chosen was definitely too tight and too short, and the heels she was wearing made every step a real challenge. "Ms. Alexandra Dorset?" a courteous waiter asked as soon as she entered. Veronica swallowed and nodded, not trusting her voice. The man smiled and gestured for her to follow him. He led her through an elegant dining room filled with people conversing in hushed tones amid the delicate sounds of a piano. "Mr. Kensington is already waiting," the waiter said, indicating a table in the corner of the room by a large window overlooking Michigan Avenue, illuminated by evening lights. William Kensington stood as soon as he saw her. He was taller than she'd expected, with broad shoulders emphasized by a perfectly tailored suit. His dark hair had slight traces of gray at the temples, which added character. Even though she'd seen his photos in newspapers, they couldn't capture the intensity of his gray eyes. "Ms. Dorset," he said, extending his hand. His voice was deep and calm. "Pleasure to meet you." Veronica shook his hand, trying to keep hers from trembling. "William Kensington," she replied. "The pleasure is mine." As they sat down, Veronica realized Kensington was studying her with slight surprise. "You?" "No," he said after a moment, pouring wine into their glasses. "I expected someone different." Veronica's heart stopped for a moment. She knew this absurd plan would never work. "Really?" she managed to choke out, feeling her cheeks grow hot. Kensington smiled slightly. "From our phone conversations, I got the impression you were more of a corporate type. But you're—" He paused, searching for the right word. "I'm what?" Veronica asked, unable to contain her curiosity. "Authentic," he answered, looking straight into her eyes. "That's a rare quality in the business world." Veronica didn't know how to interpret that comment, so she took a sip of wine to buy time. Kensington was different than she'd expected. He wasn't arrogant or condescending. On the contrary, he seemed to listen attentively as she began talking about the project, using the information Alexandra had drilled into her head. "So your agency wants to create a social campaign for youth from smaller towns?" he asked when she finished. Veronica nodded. "Yes. We want to give them access to digital education and show them the possibilities that the creative industry offers." "That's an ambitious project." Kensington leaned slightly toward her. "But why my foundation specifically? There are many larger organizations that could finance this." This question wasn't in the script Alexandra had prepared. Veronica hesitated, then decided to tell the truth, or at least the part of the truth she knew. "Because your foundation has a reputation as an organization that doesn't just give money but actually gets involved in projects," she answered honestly. "And we're looking for a partner, not just a sponsor." Something in Kensington's gaze changed. The intensity of his gray eyes increased as he studied her face, as if searching for something beneath the surface. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Most people come to me with ready-made presentations, slides full of graphs and projections, and you bring an idea and passion." Veronica suddenly felt uncomfortable. She realized she was starting to step out of Alexandra's role and be herself, which was the last thing she should be doing. "Of course, we also have data and projections," she said quickly, reaching into her purse for the folder her sister had prepared. "Here are all the financial details and project timeline." Kensington waved his hand. "I'll look at that later. Right now, I'd rather hear more about you." "About me?" Veronica felt panic. Again. "There's not much to tell." "I doubt that," he smiled. "A woman who starts her own creative agency at 26 must have an interesting story." Veronica cursed Alexandra in her mind. Of course, her sister wouldn't have told her important details from her resume. "It was a spontaneous decision," she said, trying to sound confident. "I always wanted to do something meaningful." Kensington nodded approvingly. "It's rare for someone with such commercial success to still want to do something socially significant. I'm impressed." The dinner lasted longer than Veronica had planned. With each moment, she felt increasingly comfortable in William's company, who turned out to be not only intelligent, but also a funny conversationalist. He told stories about his travels, about how he started with a small startup in a basement in the West Loop, about his failures and successes. "What about your personal life?" he finally asked, when the waiter brought dessert. "You must have many admirers." Veronica nearly choked on a piece of cheesecake. "I don't have time for a personal life," she answered evasively. "That's a shame." Kensington looked at her with an inscrutable expression. "Someone like you deserves more than just work." When they left the restaurant, William offered to take her home. "No need. I'll take a cab," Veronica protested. "I insist," he said firmly. "It's already late, and I have to go that way anyway." She had no idea where Alexandra lived, so she gave the address of her small apartment in Lincoln Park, hoping her sister lived somewhere nearby. When the black Jaguar stopped in front of her building, Veronica felt a pang of shame. This place looked modest. Too modest for a supposedly successful advertising agency owner. "Thank you for a lovely evening," Kensington said as his driver opened her door. "I also thank you," she replied honestly. "It was unexpectedly pleasant." "Unexpectedly?" he smiled, getting out of the car to walk her to the door. "I didn't know what to expect," Veronica admitted. When they stood at the building's entrance, Kensington leaned down slightly and kissed her on the cheek, so gently she almost didn't feel it. "See you soon, Alexandra," he said quietly. Veronica nodded, not trusting her voice. Only when he disappeared into his car did she realize she'd committed fraud against a man who'd shown her only courtesy and respect. She felt a pang of guilt that didn't leave her all night. "He did what?" Alexandra's "ooh" voice was so loud that Veronica had to pull the phone away from her ear. It was early Saturday morning, the day after dinner with William Kensington. "He offered me a job on the project for children's homes," Veronica repeated, sitting on her small balcony sipping tea. The view from her apartment on the 5th floor of an old building in Lincoln Park wasn't impressive, but she liked watching the city come to life. But how? He knew you weren't me?" Alexandra sounded completely confused. Veronica sighed. "Yes, he knew from the beginning. He'd seen you at a conference once." Silence fell on the other end of the line. "And he's not angry? He didn't withdraw funding for the project?" "No," Veronica answered, still not believing her good fortune. "He wants to invest in the project, but on the condition that I run it. As me, not as you." "But why you?" Disbelief mixed with something else Veronica couldn't quite identify was in Alexandra's voice. Jealousy? Resentment? "We talked about technology, artificial intelligence, education," Veronica explained. "Apparently, he liked my ideas." Alexandra muttered. "What about our agency? This was supposed to be a project for us." Veronica felt a pang of guilt. "I know. I'm sorry. Maybe we could collaborate? Your agency could handle the project's promotion?" "Maybe," Alexandra replied without enthusiasm. "When are you meeting with him?" "Today at 1 p.m. in his office." "Oh," Alexandra's voice suddenly came alive. "Then you should stop by my place before the meeting. I'll help you get ready. We'll do makeup. Choose an appropriate outfit." "No, Alex," Veronica interrupted firmly. "I appreciate the offer, but this time I'm going as myself. No makeup, no pretending to be someone I'm not." "But Vera," Alexandra started to protest. "No," Veronica repeated with unprecedented firmness for herself. "William explicitly said he wants to work with me, not with an imitation of you. And you know what? I want that too. I've lived in your shadow my whole life, Alex. Maybe it's time I stepped into the light." Silence fell on the other end again. "You're right," Alexandra finally said, a note of pride appearing in her voice. "Go there and show him how amazing you are, Vera. I've always believed in you, you know." Veronica smiled, knowing that wasn't entirely true, but appreciating her sister's support. "Thank you, Alex. I'll call after the meeting." A few hours later, Veronica stood before an impressive glass skyscraper in downtown Chicago, where Kensington Tech headquarters was located. She was dressed in her best blouse and skirt, nothing fancy, but neat and professional. With glasses on her nose and hair tied in a neat but simple ponytail, she looked like regular Veronica, and that was exactly what she wanted. At reception, she gave her name and was led to a private elevator that took her straight to the top floor of the building. When the elevator doors opened, she found herself in a spacious corridor with a panoramic view of Chicago. "Miss Dorset," an elegant middle-aged woman greeted her. Mr. Kensington is expecting you. This way, please. Veronica was led into a huge office where floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across an entire wall with a breathtaking view of the city. William stood by the window, his back turned, but when he heard her enter, he turned and smiled broadly. "Veronica," he greeted her warmly. "I'm glad you came as yourself." Veronica felt her cheeks flush. William looked as good as the previous evening, dressed in a simple but undoubtedly expensive navy suit that emphasized his physique. Without a jacket, with rolled-up shirt sleeves, he looked more approachable, less like a millionaire and more like a normal person. "Good morning," she said, shaking his extended hand. "Thank you for the invitation. Please sit down." He indicated a comfortable chair at a small conference table. "Coffee? Tea?" "Tea would be wonderful, thank you," William ordered. Tea for Veronica and coffee for himself through the intercom, then sat across from her. "So," he began, looking straight into her eyes, "how do you feel after last night? Still interested in the project?" "More than ever," Veronica answered honestly. "I thought all night about the possibilities, about how we could use technology to really help these kids." William smiled approvingly. "Great, because I have a proposition for you." For the next hour, they discussed project details. The Kensington Tech Foundation would invest significant funds in creating a technology program for children in orphanages throughout the country. The program would aim not only to teach them programming basics and technology, but also to develop creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. "I want you to lead the entire program," William said when they finished discussing the basic assumptions. "You'll have full control over the budget, team, and direction of project development." Veronica looked at him in disbelief. "But why me? I don't have experience managing such large projects. I don't even have experience in the tech industry beyond my studies." William leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Veronica, in my life I've met countless people with impressive resumes, titles, and experience, but I rarely meet someone with genuine passion, vision, and empathy. And that's what you have. The rest can be learned." "What if I fail?" she asked quietly, voicing her greatest fear. "What if you achieve spectacular success?" he answered with a question. "I'm not hiring you because you're Alexandra's sister, or because I feel guilty about last night's misunderstanding. I'm hiring you because I see something special in you, something many people miss when they focus on appearances." Veronica felt warmth spreading through her body. For the first time, someone looked at her and really saw her. Not Alexandra's uglier sister, not the gray mouse from the library, but Veronica with all her ideas, passions, and possibilities. "Thank you," she said, not finding other words. "I won't let you down." "I know," he replied with a smile. "Now, what do you say to lunch? We still have a lot to discuss." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The project for children's homes developed better than anyone could have predicted. Veronica discovered a talent for management, for inspiring others, for turning her visions into reality. Her team, initially skeptical of the inexperienced boss, quickly appreciated her technical knowledge, creativity, and genuine concern for the children they were helping. She worked harder than ever in her life, but for the first time felt she was doing something meaningful, something that was truly hers. She quit her library job, rented a new, larger apartment closer to the office, and completely immersed herself in her new life. And William was with her the whole time, as a mentor, friend, and over time, something more. Their relationship developed slowly, naturally, built on a foundation of mutual respect, similar values, and authentic interest in each other. Veronica still remembered the moment when she first realized she was falling in love with him. It was during a visit to one of the children's homes in Milwaukee. She watched William sit on the floor with a group of kids, patiently explaining how a simple robot they'd programmed themselves worked. His face was lit with enthusiasm, and the children looked at him with admiration and joy. In that moment, she understood that this man, wealthy, handsome, successful, had more depth, empathy, and genuine kindness than anyone she'd ever met, and that with each day, she was falling more in love with him. But she said nothing. She focused on the project, on the children, on her professional development. She was afraid her feelings might complicate everything, destroy what they'd built. Until one evening, 6 months after their first meeting, when they were sitting late in the office reviewing data from the pilot program. "This is incredible," William said, looking at graphs showing the children's progress. "See these results? We've achieved more in 6 months than many government programs in years." Veronica smiled, feeling pride in their shared achievement. "It's because of the approach we created, focusing on each child's individual needs, combining technology with emotional support. It's because of you," William interrupted, looking straight into her eyes. "It's your vision, your passion, your ability to see potential where others see only problems." Veronica felt her cheeks flush. "It's our shared success, William. I never could have achieved this without your support, without the chance you gave me." William set down the papers and stood, walking to the window. For a moment he looked at Chicago's night panorama, then turned to her with an intensity in his eyes she'd never seen before. "Veronica, I need to confess something," he said quietly. "For months, I've been trying to maintain professionalism, focus on the project, on our collaboration, but I can no longer pretend that what I feel for you is just friendship or professional respect." Veronica's heart beat faster. Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? "I've fallen in love with you," he said directly. His voice was soft but certain. "With your intelligence, your modesty, your passion, your kindness, with everything you are, Veronica Dorset." Veronica felt tears welling in her eyes. Her whole life she'd felt invisible, underappreciated, always in the shadow of her beautiful sister. And now this remarkable man, who could have any woman, was looking at her as if she were the most wonderful treasure in the world. "William, she began, but her voice broke. "You don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I understand if you don't feel the same. I don't want to ruin our collaboration, our friendship. We can forget this conversation and—" "I've fallen in love with you too," she interrupted, finding courage she didn't know she had. "For months, maybe from that first evening in the restaurant when we talked about artificial intelligence, and I saw the passion in your eyes." William took a step toward her, his face brightening with a smile full of disbelief and happiness. "Really?" Veronica stood and walked toward him, feeling her heart beating so hard she was sure he could hear it too. "Really?" When William took her face in his hands and leaned down to kiss her, Veronica felt like all the elements of her life had finally found their place. As if the entire road she'd traveled, years of living in the shadow, insecurity, self-doubt, had led her to this moment, to this man who saw her for who she truly was. And for the first time in her life, Veronica was grateful to be herself, not Alexandra, not someone else, but Veronica Dorset with all her flaws and strengths. It was this Veronica, not perfect, but authentic, who was everything William Kensington had dreamed of. 1 year later, on a warm June evening, the garden of William's estate on the outskirts of Chicago filled with guests. Lights strung between trees created a magical atmosphere, and long tables groaned under the weight of exquisite dishes. The celebration had a dual purpose: celebrating the first anniversary of the official launch of Tech Kids Foundation, which in 1 year had extended its program to over 20 children's homes throughout the country, and announcing Veronica and William's engagement. Veronica, dressed in a simple but elegant cream dress, stood next to William, greeting arriving guests. Her hair, somewhat longer than a year ago, fell in gentle waves on her shoulders. She still wore glasses, despite William's repeated offers to pay for laser surgery, because, as she said, they were part of her identity. "You look beautiful," William whispered, squeezing her hand. The engagement ring with a delicate sapphire sparkled on her finger, subtle and unique, exactly as she wanted. "Thank you," she replied with a smile. "But I'm still nervous. What if your business partners think I don't fit with you?" William shook his head, looking at her tenderly. "Impossible. Everyone sees how amazing you are. Thanks to you, Tech Kids Foundation has achieved more in 1 year than most organizations in a decade. You're my inspiration, Veronica." Before she could respond, she heard a familiar voice. Vera, William, Alexandra, Dorset, dazzling as always in a red dress, approached them with a champagne glass in hand. Behind her walked Marcus, her fiancé, whom she'd finally married 6 months earlier. "Alex!" Veronica hugged her sister. Their relationship had undergone a significant transformation over the past year. Initially, Alexandra was confused and even a bit jealous of her uglier sister's success. But over time, when she saw how Veronica blossomed, how she found confidence and her place in the world, her jealousy gave way to authentic pride and support. "Congratulations on the engagement again," Alexandra said, kissing William on the cheek. "Who would have thought my stupid joke would lead to such a happy ending?" "I certainly didn't," Veronica laughed. "How's your agency doing?" "Thriving," Alexandra answered with a gleam in her eyes. "That contract for the Tech Kids marketing campaign opened many doors for us. Now we're working with 3 of the country's biggest foundations." "I'm glad," Veronica said, sincerely. There was no longer competition between them, only support and joy in each other's successes. "How are the kids from the program?" Marcus asked, joining the conversation. Despite Veronica's initial concerns, he'd turned out to be a good man who truly loved Alexandra and was happy for her happiness. "They're amazing," William answered enthusiastically. "Michalina, remember her? That 12-year-old from the children's home in Milwaukee, just won the National Youth Programming competition. And Camille and his team created an app that helps seniors in daily life. There's a chance it'll be implemented in several cities." "That's wonderful," Alexandra said with genuine admiration. "I always knew my sister was a genius. The world just needed time to discover it." Veronica smiled, moved. "Stop, or I'll cry. And there's no time for that today. I still have to greet dozens of people and give a speech." "You'll do great," Alexandra squeezed her hand. "You've always been stronger than you thought." When Alexandra and Marcus left to greet other guests, Veronica and William continued with welcomes. More business partners arrived, representatives of NGOs, friends, and colleagues. Everyone congratulated them not only on the engagement, but primarily on Tech Kids Foundation's success. "Ms. Dorset," an older man approached them, the Secretary of Education. "Your work is incredibly inspiring. We're considering implementing a similar program in public schools throughout the country." "That would be an honor, Mr. Secretary," Veronica replied, still unable to believe she was talking to the secretary as an equal, that her work and vision were so appreciated. After an hour of greetings, it was time for the official part of the evening. Veronica stood on a small platform, William beside her. For a moment she was overwhelmed by stage fright. After all, a year ago she'd still been a librarian who preferred to disappear in the shadow of books rather than speak before a crowd. But when she looked at the gathered people, at their smiling faces, at the children from the program who'd been specially invited to the celebration, she felt fear give way to pride and gratitude. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice confident and warm. "Welcome to the first anniversary celebration of Tech Kids Foundation. A year ago, we were a small team with a big dream, to give children from orphanages a chance at a better future through technology. Today, we're a family made up of dozens of facilities, hundreds of children, and amazing people who change these young people's lives for the better every day." Veronica talked about the Foundation's achievements, the children's successes, plans for the future. She spoke with passion and commitment that spread to the listeners. When she finished, the room burst into applause. "And now," she added when the applause died down, "I'd like to invite a special person to the stage, a man who a year ago gave a chance to an unassuming librarian from Lincoln Park, seeing in her something no one else noticed, a man who believes in every child's potential, regardless of their background. My partner in life and work, William Kensington." William stepped onto the platform amid applause. For a moment he looked at Veronica with such love and pride that she felt her heart fill with warmth. "Thank you, Veronica," he began. "But you're the real hero of this evening. You're the one who transformed my general desire to help children into a concrete, functioning program that changes lives. It's your vision, your passion, your tireless commitment that brought us to where we are today." Then William turned to the assembled guests. "A year ago, I met a woman who came to a business meeting pretending to be someone else." Laughter rang out, as the story of their first meeting had already become legend among friends. But fate is ironic, because it was when she took off the mask and showed me who she really was that I fell in love. Veronica felt tears welling in her eyes. "I fell in love with her mind, her heart, her courage," William continued. "And I thank fate every day for sending me that uglier sister." More laughter rang out. "Because thanks to that, I found not only a business partner, but the love of my life." William turned to Veronica, taking her hand in his. "Veronica Dorset, thank you for agreeing to become my wife. Thank you for being yourself, authentic, intelligent, compassionate, woman who changes the world for the better. I love you for who you are, not for how you look or what social position you have, and I promise to love you this way for the rest of our lives." Veronica couldn't stop the tears. Moved, she stood on her toes and kissed William, not caring that everyone was watching. The room burst into applause and shouts of joy. When the official part of the evening ended and guests dispersed through the garden, enjoying music, food, and conversations, Veronica found a moment to be alone. She stood on a small bridge over the pond in the back of the garden, looking at stars reflected in the water. A year ago, she'd been a gray mouse afraid of her own shadow. Today she led a foundation changing the lives of hundreds of children. She was engaged to a man who loved her for who she really was. And finally, she felt comfortable in her own skin. "There you are," Alexandra approached, standing beside her on the bridge. "Running away from your own party?" Veronica smiled at her sister. "I needed a moment to process all this. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." Alexandra put her arm around her. "And I can't believe my stupid joke led to all this. When I sent you to that meeting as the uglier sister, I never would have thought that the uglier sister would find happiness." Veronica finished for her, but without bitterness, with a smile. "You're not ugly, Vera," Alexandra said seriously. "You never were. We both, me and the world, just needed time to see your true beauty. Beauty that's not in the face, but in the heart and mind." Veronica hugged her sister. "Thank you, Alex, for everything, even for that stupid joke." "At your service," Alexandra laughed. "Now let's get back. Your future husband is looking for you, and the Secretary of Education wants to talk about expanding the program to rural schools." As they returned to the guests, Veronica noticed William talking with a group of children from the program. His face was lit with a smile as he listened to their stories about an app they were creating. Looking at him, at the children, at all the gathered guests, Veronica felt deep gratitude for the chance, for love, for the opportunity to do what she loved. A year ago, she'd been the uglier sister, sent to a millionaire as a joke. Today she was herself, Veronica Dorset, and that was enough. Because true beauty didn't hide in perfect features or fashionable clothes, but in the courage to be yourself, in the passion to change the world, and in love that sees beyond the surface. And she'd finally understood that, and that was the most precious discovery of her life. The end. If this story touched your heart, remember, your worth isn't defined by how you compare to others, but by who you truly are. Sometimes being the uglier sister means being the one with depth, intelligence, and a heart that changes the world. Share this with someone who needs to know they're enough, exactly as they are. Subscribe if you believe in the kind of love that sees past appearances, in the power of authenticity, and in second chances that come when you dare to be yourself. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give the world is simply being you, unapologetically, completely, beautifully you.